All right, time for lulls with Pete and Bric. We got some news about some potential new sports betting regulation that's right up our alley that we can talk about. We also have all kinds of tiers in the best ball streets. I'm excited to get Brian's thoughts on how all of the normie best ball players are coping from getting bounced. And maybe we'll find out if Brian has any teams that advanced that didn't advance that are in second place. All of that today on Lulls.
Does he think? I think he thinks this. He thinks this is a go. Vegas Dave thinks this is a go.
Hot naked girls doing yoga.
What?
Why don't you just win like a man?
Random.org. Type in 1 for yes, 2 for no. Let the DFS gods pick for you.
And I'm absolutely begging you not to dupe us. Please don't dupe us.
All right, what is up, Brian? I was just looking at the numbers from last week. People loved the show with Levitan. Lots of good stuff there, and then he shouted it out on the his solo pod as well.
He did. Yeah, I listened to his solo pod. He shouted us out. That was fun. That was a good show. We should if he'd want to, we should have him on more when there's some interesting things to talk about. People seem to enjoy it. I want to recap that, but we got to talk about the thumbnail because it came to me while you were doing your intro. It's Clark Griswold. It's Christmas Vacation.
Christmas Vacation. Yeah, with his with cousin Eddie next to him.
That's cousin Eddie. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And it's based, like Chicagoland based. I thought it was Strange Brew, and I'm like, that is a deep cut that this guy knows the movie Strange Brew. But of course, Christmas Vacation, of course, classic.
Yeah, shout out to my my thumbnail guy. He also edits the videos on the Deposit Kingdom. It's Chris Moreno, and sometimes I'll give him a specific prompt, like, "Hey, we're talking about this." Like last week, he did the Levitan and the sports betting and looking over his shoulder, the DK guy who lost $1 million. Normally, I'll just be like, "I don't know what we're talking about," and he'll have some kind of fun inspiration that involves us. So that was that one.
There's a Cousin Eddie's restaurant chain in the Midwest.
Really?
Yeah, it's more in like St. Louis area, like Springfield, Southwest Illinois.
Yeah.
I didn't know we don't have any up here in Chicago, but when I worked in Springfield, there was like, let's go to Cousin Eddie's. I'm like, Cousin Eddie's.
It's really a tribute to that.
It's got all the tribute, all the stuff from the movies, and it's
like the slogan, like, "Give me some of that their Yeller" or whatever.
I don't remember. Yeah.
Those movies always have a soft spot in my heart. But you said you wanted to recap some of the conversation.
Well, it kind of like that, and they're really pushing hard. It seems like for regulation. I don't know. I see like a tweet every day. It's hard to tell these, in modern times, if we just see things more because it's all on the internet, where before you would never have known things were going on, or if they're actually really pushing hard. But it seems like they're pushing pretty hard for some regulation, and that doesn't surprise me that all these lawsuits and stuff were happening right before legislation. It's like, what a coincidence. This always seems to happen this way. Just a natural occurrence. Go ahead.
The article you sent me, is that the one you're referencing? The Senate Judiciary Committee promises federal sports betting oversight discussions just beginning.
Yeah. So did you have thoughts on it or something?
Well, I'll pull it up here for people. One thing that I was surprised, in the first bullet point, something that like actually hasn't been a topic that we've hit on a lot when we've discussed this, is that the harassment of athletes on the rise. I mean, we always talk about in the fantasy world, idiots who are chirping at these guys on Twitter, but they're leading this. 5 witnesses provided their testimony here about players who have been harassed, which is pretty wild.
Did these players, do they even matter?
No. Well, it's so funny because these witnesses are not actually players. This is which is why I'm confused. 5 witnesses provided their testimony, but these are like president of the NCAA. These aren't even like the players themselves.
Dick Durbin, of course, is the comment right above this paragraph. The legislator, senator here from Illinois.
Was it a coincidence that like this story and stuff popped up after the kind of DraftKings story made national waves.
That's what I just was kind of alluding to. Yeah, it's like, what a coincidence. And it's not just DraftKings too. Like they've kind of been laying. There's been stories and popular media figures talking about this a lot more in the last 6 months. This is what I was going to say about with Adam and that this kind of stuff. Adam, with Adam and pretty much a lot of guys in our world is they're normal. Like I know like Levitan's probably like, I'm not normal, and nobody thinks he's normal, but like he's normal in like a non-political sense, like, and I mean political, like actual politics at the State House.
Okay.
Right. Like it's a game there. So like you like a normal person, like, Adam or us or whoever goes like, well, there is gambling addiction. It's like we really like, we want to help these people, and they look at all the nuanced sides of it and stuff like that. Right. They're not doing that there. Right.
No.
That there is, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Right.
How are we going to utilize that? How do we win this game?
What stories can we weaponize?
What stories can we weaponize? Who could we roll in here to get our agenda passed? And so, like, you being a normal person, they're going to use you. They're going to, this is kind of what I've been getting at the last couple of years of people in our world making a big deal out of gambling addiction, although it's bad. And I wish it didn't happen to anybody. Like us preaching that is just reinforcing their narrative to achieve their end goals, which is, it depends, but a lot of the times, most of the time, it will be the businesses actually, even though it appears like they're reining in the bad boys. It's either A, that's not true, and they're actually lobbyists are working the bill, or B, somehow they pass it despite the lobbyists, but eventually the lobbyists will get control of it because they're there forever. Like even Trump's gone in 4 years. You know what I mean? Like if you're a big Trump fan, you think everything's going to change. The lobbyists never leave. So like, even if you get a big win, they usually massage the bill over time in the favor of their constituency.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of like a negative blackpilling way to look at it. But, like when, I mean, we're doing podcasts here, so we should talk about all the nuances and stuff, but I'm like, making a broader point here. Of course, you say whatever we want, but like, it's really a game. So like if you think of it like a poker game, it's kind of like it's like playing a poker tournament and going like, I'm not going to bluff because bluffing's like lying. And that, that's like bad. So I'm just not going to bluff. And I'm going to, tell everyone at the table, I'm never going to bluff, and this is like a moral stance I'm taking. And it's like, that's fine, but you're never going to win. You're not going to win the tournament. That's kind of what it's like at the Capitol in my experience. Yeah. Is you play the game or you're going to lose. And the people who are moral, like, morally sound are usually gone. Or they don't get their agenda passed. They're like, like Bernie Sanders or something, like I'm asking once again, what is the meme, the Bernie meme? Yeah. Once again, I'm asking.
This article, it does seem like the first thing they do want to go after the most is NCAA player props. And they're using this as a way to combat harassment against student athletes. Only 19 states continue to allow these bets, he said, but a federal prohibition on the props would be quite welcome. Going after the college prop stuff.
In Illinois, you can't bet on any Illinois colleges. That was their solution here. I don't know what they did.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's so fun. I mean, I can't do any college prop stuff here. Like on the Underdog, when Tuttle gives off his lock of the week for college stuff, it's not on my menu. I can't do the college football drafts either.
You can't do any college football lines or anything here. Like for Illinois schools, which would suck. Like if I was still in, going to school at Northern, like going to the game, man, I would love to put a little money on it.
That's such a funny, like, I mean, I guess I kind of get it, if they're saying this is an issue and it's better than nothing, but it's that they think people in state won't harass. I don't know. That's such a funny like loophole.
They always need like a narrative. First of all, this is like whenever you're trying to convince a legislator of anything, it's got to be like short and brief, like a 1-sentence slogan. They don't have time for anything else. They're fundraising constantly. So like, and then maybe you give them a 1-page sheet on your issue. Maybe, and that page better be short and to the point. And so like, oh, we're going to ban it for college kids. Got it. So when someone's like, hey, this is bad, we're like, listen, we're stopping it for college kids. Pete, we're trying here. We're stopping it for college kids. What, do you want to ban the whole thing? Do you want to ban the whole thing, Pete? So like you give them like a little carrot, a little something to talk about, a little thing to stand on their high horse.
Yep. Yeah. And I saw, did a decent amount of the sports betting guys were talking about this. I saw a tweet from Captain Jack, who is kind of, he sounded pretty concerned about kind of what this meant going forward. Yeah.
It's funny when he came on our show, he didn't really enjoy the experience. I think he just totally misunderstood. Like we talked past each other because like we have the same goals, but
right.
I was trying to make this point I was making earlier, like by, sounding the alarm bells of gambling addiction all the time, are we really doing the players who I think he really advocates on behalf of the players? Are we doing them a disservice? And if you look at some of these like fair play initiative organizations and stuff like that, they're not for the players. If you dig in, they're usually like anti-gambling organizations, clouded under the umbrella of protecting players.
Yeah, he had tweeted out, today's not going to be a good day for the future of sports betting. And then someone said, what is happening today? And he said, the Senate Judiciary Committee is taking aim at the industry. Expect to hear how student athletes are being bullied by disgruntled bettors, how bankruptcy filings have increased dramatically in states with betting, how 4 out of 5 men in their 20s are addicted. It is interesting. And again, not to put words in his mouth, but it almost seems like how, like he has there's an implication of skepticism to the validity of these things. But when he was on with us, he seemed very, very serious about taking problem gambling seriously.
Yes. Yeah, he definitely was. Yeah. Like, and he said, expect to hear the students and stuff like that. I said this, Pete, when we first started doing this podcast, like they're going to wheel up somebody, they're going to wheel up somebody who gambled away their kids' college fund in defensive. But like, I think people need to understand too, though, like it's not, I don't think the businesses are sweating this. Yeah. I think they're heavily involved in any negotiations that are going on. I would bet money on it.
Is the concern the slippery slope of like, hey, we toss them the bone. Yeah, we'll be done with college props. We don't need that part. We can survive that. But then it's like, okay, well then what do they come for next? If that's just the first.
You're talking about from like DraftKings perspective, it's moding off competition.
Yeah,
it's regulatory capture. It's the same thing over and over and over again. This is the blue book of what to do.
I'm saying like if they are okay with that because of that angle, though, does it worry that then they come for the next thing of like now we want to get rid of this next thing and we've already set precedent in being able to push that back.
I mean, maybe that's like the back of their mind, but if you're the one driving the legislation, are you really that scared? I think for a major change, it would have to be some sort of ideological warrior who got in a position of some serious power, because everyone else is incentivized by the same incentives and consequences. And the businesses benefit from that structure where they can help fund their campaigns. They can help. They're there all the time. They can afford lobbyists to camp out there and negotiate these issues, testify at the hearings, oppose bills. They're all friends.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think to answer your question, I don't think they're scared. I don't think they're scared at all.
It looks like this Safe Bet Act has some other provisions. It would respect sports betting ads airing between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. and during live sporting events. It's thought that minors are most likely to see ads during these times. I think Levitan even referenced that, like on his solo pod, like he's watching sports with kids, and it's just like a nonstop barrage of ads for sports betting.
We said this last week. There's so many angles to this too. For us, like banning sports betting ads is great because then they'll spend all the money on DFS and best ball.
Because there's no rules on advertising.
They can't do sports betting. They'll do let's do DFS and best ball, and hopefully they sports bet when they get there. So it would be fantastic for us, for our world.
Man, after I'm thinking about bringing in more normies to playing Best Ball Mania after my Twitter feed this week was just littered with some of the worst possible discourse for people who don't understand what playing a best ball tournament with 600,000 some people means for their expected ROI. I think I saw you have a tweet in reference to that. I assume your feed was littered with that as well.
Yeah, I saw a whole bunch of them. Yeah, so everyone's like, I had bad pod luck, or don't complain about your pod luck. I had good pod luck and still couldn't squeak one out.
I just like, my whole thing is it's a lot of people who are new to big tournaments, who don't have kind of the experience and understand how big these are, the swings, the variants, and then basically trying to retroactively bend the rules in a way that would have favored them this specific year. And there's just so many people who I don't think, like, if you gave any of these people like $450 and be like, go max the Wildcat this week, the $3 BR tournament, or here's 10 cents, go max the mini max on DraftKings this week and see how much money you return. And then and then realize then they act shocked. Like, oh, I only got, 100 back and I maxed the Wildcat this week or whatever. And it's like that is your expected return the majority of the time. But because it's a single slate, people are just flabbergasted because they've been emotionally in time invested in this slate for 8 months or longer. It's like they can't wrap their heads around that the variant still exists there.
Yeah, for sure. That it is a problem with DFS too, actually. Like the fact that you're going to probably only get like 25% back if you're playing a large field GPP. Is not a good look for noobs who expect to, win half the time or something from sports betting or.
And I think there is something about it. And again, like some of the discourse is just, it makes me weep. It also makes me very excited about the people that we play against in these games, but there is something about the way the tournament is structured that I think can like trick a normie brain, right? Where it's like, I just have to finish 2 out of 12. And I just have to finish 1 out of 12. And all of a sudden I'm only 1 week away from a top 20 people get 6 figures. Like, that's not that hard. 2 of 12, 1 of 12, 1 of 16. Come on. Like, it seems so much easier. Then you actually start crunching the numbers. It's like, okay, you have 150 teams. You'll be expected to get one team to the finals once every 10 years. If you max, like, there's something about it that just like breaks people's brains.
That's a good observation. It does kind of seem, if you don't know anything about it, it does kind of seem way more, because if you think of like an NFL Sunday Millie, you're like, okay, 1 in 600,000. There's no way I'm winning it. Like, there's I'll throw $5 in there if it's a $5 one, but like, there's no way I'm winning this. But this, you only got to be 12 people first. First time's 12 people. It's kind of does seem like it's a doable thing. I would say this: if next year, who knows if the math could work out like this, I would make the first round top 2. I finished top 2, but like I do think like letting them more guys pass that first round and then make a pretty big cut in the second round might piss them off less. Do you think that's true?
Dude, honestly, I think people are going to find a way to bitch and complain no matter what. And what's so crazy is like, man, you thought not getting teams through when it was 1 of 12 this week was bad. And you had like, say people who had decent advance rates, say that you had 20 to 30 teams and you're like pissed off because you only got 1 or 2 through. Now imagine what it's going to be like when you have 1 or 2 bullets and then are going up against 15 other teams in your pod. Like, it literally is like, exponentially harder this week with less bullets and more people in your pod. It's just like the whole point of this tournament is it fucking humbles you, and you just need to sun run, and you need to have basically zero expectations and just enjoy if the best ball gods shine their face upon you.
Yes. Yeah. And like expect to like make nothing. Cause I got second and I got $35 back. And you're like, oh man, you won your pod to get in, you take second, you don't make it past, but how much money do I get? $15 profit.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just think too, like this year we saw, I think Hope tweeted it out from Underdog. I think they ended up having 76 total contests across all their stuff. The best ball, I think I heard something that they want to have like 100 this year. And they had some like very different structures, ones where it's like you're in smaller pods, like, in a group of 6 and like top 2 advance. Obviously the higher stakes you get, the more teams that advance. But even at the smaller stakes, they had some structures. And then people like shrug it off because it's like, oh, it's only 20,000 to first. Or it's like, that's the whole point. There's fucking trade-offs to everything. You either get to compete in a lotto for life-changing money, or you compete against less people for a little bit less money. But yeah, it's just the education that still has to go on in the best ball space. It is encouraging that the space is growing and that there's so many people who are like understanding how this works. But man, people don't understand how tournaments work.
I mean, a little sports betting regulation might help, Pete. A little sports. Maybe we should get behind these lobbyists and get these bills passed.
I'm curious on your take. So this guy in the best ball community, I met him in Dallas. He's a big volume grinder on on Underdog. And he had a post yesterday wondering if people would like to see salary cap games on Underdog. And I know you've mentioned this before, and I know you're always pro, like, more competition. Let's, get these guys going. But, like, if you can put yourself specifically in Underdog shoes, do you think it would be, like, good or bad for the draft games if salary cap DFS was brought over there?
That's a good question. It'd probably be bad, but not horrible, because I think a lot of dudes would play the draft, the salary cap, who otherwise wouldn't. Like, I'd probably do some salary cap over there.
Oh, I'm sure you would.
Yeah. And so I'm sure a decent chunk of people would come over. And it feels like it would be, who knows, right? I'm guessing, but I think it would be a little negative for best ball, but good for the industry, and a decent time to do it, because FanDuel's trying again a little bit, but man, they are just a mess of a company, and they just have so many computer, code issues and stuff. Like, everyone knows, like, I don't know if you noticed, like last week or something, like the site was down and like you couldn't get your CSV changed for days. But anyways, there's not a ton of competition, so it'd be a pretty good time to try it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think it'd be bad in that people who play draft games would be like, oh, I'll just put my money that's on the site into the salary cap games instead? Is that the thought?
Yeah, that's what I would get. I would think there'd be less money to go around. This happens there's like a cannibalization effect, even with offering more GPPs in basketball or DFS. Like they did this with the mini max in DraftKings. They offered a 150 small low buy-in, but then eventually it ate the 20 max low buy-in. And then I think eventually then they got rid of the 150 and brought the 20 max back, or maybe they switched between the two, but there just wasn't enough liquidity. So I think that might happen. There's not a ton of liquidity in basketball, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice that they keep adding, like, oh, there's a new mitten, blah, blah, blah. It's cool that they do that. But like, there's only like 2 or 3 tournaments, there's not a ton. Like on DraftKings, there's tons of them.
Well, and that's the thing, right? With draft games, it's a tightrope walk, right? Because to maintain the liquidity, you need a fewer amount of options, because you don't want the user experience of someone sitting in a room and waiting for 45 minutes for their draft to fill, right? You're trying to find that line of like a robust menu of options, but also making sure if I hop in a draft, I'm going to be able to start that draft in the next, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
When I was talking, I'm not going to speak out of school, but when I was talking to them, I do know that they're thinking about ways to help with those elements of basically having sitting in rooms that aren't filling in a few creative ways to maybe make sure that doesn't happen quite as much.
What do you mean by sitting in rooms that don't fill? What does that mean?
So sorry, like take for instance, this best ball summer, they had the sprint contest. It was the $50 one, and it was very slow to fill. So like you could register for that contest and sit around. It was a joke. It became a joke. Again, the Jewish McCaffrey guy of being like in the Discord pinging everyone, need 3 of 12, need 4 of 12. Like you could sit waiting for an hour for that contest to fill, which isn't a good user experience.
Right. I mean, if the old DraftKings way was you just do the minimum guarantee. And so if 7 out of 10 fill by 4 hours, there's overlay.
Right, but you can't have overlay like on an individual draft.
Yeah, you can. You say like this is starting in 4 hours unless it fills, then it'll start it right away.
Right, but are you saying then it's 7 people in the draft room?
There's 7 people in the draft, and there's 3.
No, but you can't, because then it ruins.
But that's literally what DraftKings used to do.
I know, but that's insane for draft games. That couldn't work.
Yeah, but they were building their brand. I'm not kidding. Like there was tons of overlay back in the day in DraftKings, and people. This is how people could win.
I know, but it makes sense for salary cap. But you would basically be saying like someone gets a super team.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because you have to draft against each other.
Yeah.
But would that even matter? Because don't you still just have what is it? What is the difference? You just all have access to the same player pool.
No, I mean like I don't think this would ever happen, but I think for your solution, it would basically be you have 4 like draft proxies in there that are just drafting off the ADP.
And maybe I misheard you too. I was thinking this is like a 12-man, that's it, high stakes thing.
Okay, an individual.
This would be a pod, you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying.
Okay, I'm saying like a 12-man high stakes thing.
Right. No, I get what you're saying.
They're playing there. If they're insular, then who cares? Just like then 10 out of 12 fill in 4 hours, you're rolling. But that wouldn't work in a bigger one. But yeah, maybe there is something. I'd have to think about. Maybe I could think of a way to get that going. But that would be cool if they did DFS. I mean, who knows how it's going to be? Sports betting definitely changed DFS.
Yeah,
I think that what's it called? That observation turned out to be true.
Well, I saw Shit My Money. I think he somehow ended up in the replies with one of the best ball bros who was in his feels about the BBM structure, and he had made the point that he was able to play a hockey slate last night that was like bigger than most of any of the like best ball tournaments or the weekly games, that like the DFS market. And he was basically conceding DFS doesn't feel like it's growing, but it still has some pretty good staying power, and the prize pools that they're able to put up are still pretty large in comparison.
DFS and in drafts, I think best balls, I don't think they're going anywhere. I just think they have a strong constituency or whatever. Like there's a nice core of people who really like it. I don't know how much bigger they will get.
Yeah. See it. And that's why I was struggling, because I had heard from people too, thinking that salary cap games on Underdog would be really bad for the draft games. And I do see the pros and cons, but I think it also kind of discounts some of the pros, right? Like I think that volume flow could work in both directions. Like someone like me, like if Underdog had really good salary cap games, I would probably have no money on DraftKings. Like if the rake was lower and I could play a spy adjacent contest on Underdog where I have more of a bankroll, the rake was lower and I don't have to use 2 different sites or whatever. I would probably play all my volume there, even biases over my shoulder aside. So I do think you would have a flow of people who are like, oh yeah, I'm going to do the draft, but I'm also going to play a little bit of that. In the same way, even though I play the majority of my volume on Underdog and I've ramped up my volume, I still play the same volume on DraftKings each week, even as I've increased my draft games play each week. I guess I sometimes don't see those things as mutually exclusive, but maybe I'm being naive about how that would shake out.
That it kind of makes me think that there's really only a few tournaments people care about. There's a ton of tournaments on DraftKings, but everyone seems to like the spy of course, the flagship. Like maybe they could just do like a niche couple salary cap offers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. Just nothing. Not really trying to compete with DraftKings or whatever. Just roll out.
Yeah.
It'd probably be too big of a project.
And it's funny because we've talked about like season long too, right? Like if you were able to host your friends league there, or say they went for the high stakes season long market, from a tech perspective, I would assume salary cap would actually be easier than the full season long. When you add all the mechanics for the ad drops and, all of that shit, that seems a little harder than adding salary cap to me.
Yeah. I'm thinking like the coding, who knows? We're
Yeah.
doing some coding stuff ourselves, and it's, it takes forever, man. It takes forever.
I know.
Just like the draft caddy too, stuff like it's not, you don't think it's complicated. And then, so who knows? But yeah, that'd be, if they see sports betting getting regulated, they're probably not, because they're not the big boy yet. So they don't really want regulations just yet, especially advertising regulations.
No,
I see them
the
all
ones
over
that gets
YouTube all the
owned.
time.
Right. Because to compete, regulation probably leads to higher licensing fees, more expensive pay to play type stuff anyway. So the big boys are gonna, like you said, benefit the most in those scenarios.
Yeah, higher licensing fee, probably more KYC, possibly no advertising or limited advertising. I'm assuming those are pretty much the biggies. Some sort of cap, maybe some sort of cap on. I don't know. Who knows what they're going to do?
Isn't that such an interesting thing? We've talked about it before about, the strategies, the early FanDuel and DraftKings, obviously the massive ad blitz when DFS launched versus Underdog strategy. Of course, Underdog is now doing, legacy type ads and commercials, but like they started their business through influencer marketing. That's still kind of a workaround, right? To like a lot of these restrictions to, okay, you can't advertise during sports events. It's like, what are you going to do? Shut down every YouTuber and like tell them that I can't talk about Underdog 8 to 10 p.m.
Oh, I can't advertise on CNN anymore. Oh no.
Right.
Like the 8 people who are watching that. Yeah. I wonder if they would touch internet YouTube marketing, influencer marketing.
That seems
that would kill some of your guys' deals, maybe.
I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, but even policing that would just be insane. Like, I don't know. Like, it's a lot easier to police that on like the full blown, regulatory level.
Policing anything's insane. That's why it's always random sampling, right? That's how we did everything.
What can you imagine? Davis's channel gets axed, but mine skirts by.
Pete always wins. He wins again.
To keep this bit alive, I am going to need another good score one of these next 2 weeks because I haven't won in a few weeks, and it is fuel. I'm going hard these next 2 weeks. I need to
just to punish Davis during the holidays, holiday season. I don't know, man. I don't know if you actually bank the BR, it might just push him over the edge.
Here's the thing. He's not going to, I know Davis will max the BR these next 2 weeks. He does it every week. He had a nice week last week, but I can tell Davis's brain is over in playoff best ball land. That's where his time and energy is. I don't think he's given his full effort to these BR streets. I'm not flipping the switch to playoff best ball until these next 2 slates are over. Yeah.
I would agree with you, but Davis is so certain about everything. I don't think it matters in the slightest what format it is. He's like, no, you gotta take, who did he like? Who's he like this week? Juwan Jennings, it seemed like he liked him a bit.
Yeah. I was working on my gems video today. This is, if you want to know about the meta games going on between me and Davis right now, I actually like Juwan Jennings too today. And there's another guy I ended up putting as my wide receiver gem. It was close between him and Jennings. I'm like, I can't do Jennings because then Davis would be like, that's my guy, dude. You can't make him your gem.
Pete stole my gem this week.
But now my goal is to win with Juwan Jennings and Dave. He got that play for me, dude.
Oh man. If he has like 60% Jennings and you win.
I haven't. You guys got to tune in today. I don't do the Swolecast premium show, but it's Liam, Dave, and Davis, and they're gonna do a battle royale, I think, tutorial for kitchen is what they're gonna do. So that should be some peak content there. Kitchen figuring out the BRs.
Oh wow. I feel like you should be giving that. Not Davis.
They when the YouTube or when the Swolecast, split ways with Better Collective, and those guys were thinking about it, and they wanted to do the extra premium show week. But man, Thursdays are my I love doing the shows with those guys. I would do those shows for free. But man, like I just don't have time to add that. I'm slammed on Thursdays.
Right. How's your Christmas schedule looking? So I'm assuming next week by the way, we're not doing a show, right?
Well, next Thursday is the 26th, right?
It's the day after Christmas. I don't think I can.
Okay. That's completely fine. I think I'm business as usual on the 26th. But happy to take a week off. And maybe I'll hop on with the Swolies for theirs.
Right.
I think most of them, I'm like condensing a ton of stuff into Monday. Like we're gonna do the Swolecast on Monday. Gonna be an uber first look show. And then I'll have nothing on Tuesday or Wednesday, and then I'll probably be mostly normal on Thursday.
We have that problem even on Wednesdays because we can't get like reliable projections to feed Dan's sim.
I know. That's why when I saw you, I was kind of bummed out. I mean, I love watching the sim show. I generally don't miss one, but I'm always bummed when it's the early week and doesn't have like the full projections in.
Yeah.
With no disrespect to your ADP projection
fine.
model.
I spent all of like 25 minutes building that model. So we needed something.
No, I get it.
I really do think there is alpha there in that process to use ADP somehow in an EQ sim. So I don't know. We talked about it actually this week a bit at the end. So maybe we will adjust once again. But yeah, it's better. But I mean, it doesn't matter, like, because Davis will go, oh, I can't take him here.
I listened to the first, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes of your show yesterday, and then I didn't get back to it, but I was just dying because Davis admits, he's like, I've done 40 BRs or whatever so far, and I've drafted the exact same team like 35 times. And then you get on your show and you finally have a chance to diversify the teams you're doing. He goes, no, let me just take Justin Jefferson and keep drafting the exact same teams that I've already drafted 35 of.
He waits until Dan does like 4 or 5 suggestions till he gets to the one he wants. And then he's like, oh yeah, I'm doing what the computer said. Yeah, you waited till he said every name that popped up. Yeah. The other thing, the thing he was on this week too is combinatorial ownership. And it's like, how do you know? He's like, this is good combinatorial wise. It's like, how do you know for sure? Because like he won't even use the combinatorial, ownership projections, but yet they're all up here for Davis. He's like, this is going to be very different. Plus EV. Yeah, but his vibes based combinatorial ownership projections.
It's been great. I was writing for my Deposit Kingdom video, I always do like a little evergreen strategy section, and I was, thinking about kind of the landmines in the BRs. And it's like, you think about last week, right? It was like Barkley and Henry 101, 102, even Jamar Chase and Nico Collins, Joe Mixon. Like, you literally could not make a team that was top 10, top 25. I didn't go through all of them with any of those guys, with like 5 of the first 6 or 7 players on the board. Like, you were just dead for that. Like, you had to have Josh Allen. And then there were some pairings of like Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Chase Brown that could work. But it's just like, literally, if you just drafted off of ADP, 5 out of every 6 of your drafts were just fucking dead on arrival the way that slate broke.
That's who Davis didn't want, by the way, last week. When we did this show.
I learned my lesson because I didn't have any Josh Allen the week before. And I was like, I'm not making the same mistake again.
What do you think this legislation, let's say something gets enacted, do you think it could negatively impact best ball and DFS? I mean, obviously it could, but like, is it likely, or do you think it'll just be standalone sports betting?
It seems like it would have to, like, that slippery slope would have to be pretty slippery for it to trickle down into impacting fantasy and best ball.
Yeah, I don't see the benefit for anyone.
Maybe like those college football DFS contests, maybe that is where it could bleed over. But man, like coming for like NFL, NBA, MLB, like that just seems nearly impossible.
It could through like maybe be an annoyance for for like depositing, cashing out, KYC, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because they're just gonna, I mean, they've been doing this since sports betting became legal in a few states. They started rolling together all the KYC and deposit stuff into one umbrella. And and sports betting is a lot more regulated. It always was. So
yeah. Yeah.
go ahead.
No. It's interesting to think about it because it always feels like, oh, that would be so far away from happening. But then you never know how quickly the snowball could start rolling downhill with stuff.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you were kind of alluding to this earlier, and maybe I was too dismissive of it too quickly. I don't, you never know, but I really do think that this is driven by, at least in part by industry lobbyists. Yeah. And so, I don't think they mind at a certain point the regulation. They'll clamor like they do, but it
doesn't. Let me
doesn't
ask you a question about how like dirty like the lobbyist business could be. And we were reading that story last week and we were joking about like he spent his kid's baptism gift money on this. Like, are the lobbyists ever pulling the strings with the journalists, like feeding them these stories, giving them the salacious details, being like, mention the baptism thing, like in this article? Like, does the rabbit hole go that deep?
They definitely talk. I think it's more like that manufactured consent idea, like that Chomsky talks about, where they're shared likes and interests. They don't like get in a smoke-filled room. They just have kind of similar goals. Maybe the companies are owned by the same people, and you just kind of know what you're supposed to write. But I think it's
from across the way kind of thing. Yeah,
I think in that case too, like inflammatory titles get more clicks, stuff like that. So, like, again, just working together, but not in a coordinated way. It just works out that way. But they definitely, lobbyists definitely do talk to news reporters for sure. And rightfully so too. Like, I mean, I'm shitting on lobbyists, it sounds like, I guess, but like, and I told Adam, like, they don't call themselves lobbyists, they call themselves advocates, right? You're not a lobbyist, you're an advocate, but there actually are advocates for orphans and, like abused people and stuff like that. Like, they're lobbyists. Like, they explain these complex issues to the legislators. The legislators don't know anything, you know what I mean?
No.
And so there actually does need someone there from these companies to explain it. Just the incentives and consequences are all perverse. They're not like, you start your business, you need to do good because you make money to pay for your house and your kids. Like, you have normal incentives that are beneficial to everyone. Theirs are backwards, right? Like, that they do if they pass bills that make them happy, they get an overabundance of campaign contributions than they otherwise wouldn't have when they're supposed to be working on behalf of their constituency. The whole thing's insane, but it really makes me think of this concept of the reverse Pareto principle. So, like, the Pareto principle, I think most people are familiar with. 20% of the people create 80% of the outcomes, and then you could scale that up, right? It's nonlinear. So, like, of those 20%, 20% of them create 80% of those outcomes. And then within that, 20% of them create. So it's like, and then you get Elon Musk, and whatever, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, name your person who produces a ton despite just being one human being. It also works in the reverse way. So, like, 1% of the people create a disproportionate amount of the problems of society. And so, like, when you were talking earlier of like the complainers on best ball, right? Like, it's a small percentage of people who are addicted to gambling, who are causing problems on the internet, who are blah, blah. And how do you deal with that? Like it's a real serious problem, and it sucks. Like, Levitan was saying, like personal responsibilities is, he's a big personal responsibility guy. I am too. I'm sure you are as well. But like there comes a time, where this 1% is actually causing significant problems for everyone else. It just sucks though, because their solutions are always twisted. Right. This is the main problem I've always had. It's not that I don't want good things to happen to good people. It's just they don't do it.
Reflective of what is their personal interests or personal benefit. It's not actually a holistic solution.
It's crazy to me that there's still people out there who think like, no, like they just, sure, they're there's some problems, but they're really there just to, fix things, and they're trying their best. It's like, doesn't it really seem like that to you? Like maybe go work there for a little while. That I thought that would be a good, like what's the military, the draft? You get drafted, you got to go work at the Capitol for 6 months after you turn 18.
The real draft. There. Yeah.
That would change some opinions.
Jeez. Yeah. I don't, I think just getting secondhand stories from your experience is enough for me as far as experiencing what it's like to work in politics. I think I'm good. Yeah, it's unless you're like into that sort of thing, there's a big game aspect to it. So I guess people who are into games, but you got to be kind of sociopathic about it, or whatever the term is. They're it's pretty crazy. And some of them are just naive. They're like good people, but they just don't. They're just naive. They're busy. They don't know any better. Believe it or not. Oh man. Did you have any thoughts on the DK live final, Chipotle taking it down?
Yeah, the AI guy's brother.
I was gonna say I couldn't remember which was which.
It wasn't him. It was
He's Papa Gates, right?
Papa Gates.
Guy?
Martin. Yeah. Fucking. I think that definitely, not that he needed it, but cements him as one of the what is the president? Mount Rushmore of DFS.
Yeah.
I think without a doubt, you got to throw up Chipotle up there.
Yeah, it's
you know what you haven't heard in a while? The cheating, the Chipotle brothers cheating stuff. That really died out a couple of years ago.
I had a joke about it on the overview this week.
Did you do a tweet about it too? I saw something online.
I tweeted out a joke I was really proud of. That was Leone. That he should have advanced more teams than he did because he wrote the fucking manifesto.
The manifesto bit. I like that.
The Chipotle one, I said it was the greatest family win in DFS sports since Tanner and Jade.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. The Tanner and Jade. Oh my god, Shady took second. For a mere 1.25 million. I think he lost by like a point or something like that.
I'll tell you who isn't a YouTube member to this channel, and it's the Chipotle brothers, but Shady is. We were team Shady there. But it sounded like Fred had a good day.
You shouldn't feel bad. I lost by 1 point in my BBM pod. Okay. We both took beats. Okay. About the same EV.
So hang on, real talk. You were 1 point away from advancing a team to the semis?
Yeah, like 1.3 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I Keenan Allen and Cole Kmet. Go ahead.
How many teams did you have in week 15?
2.
So you almost went 1-2. Wow.
Yeah.
And you were short with Cole Kmet?
Yeah, Cole Kmet.
Damn.
Well, my tight end who got the actual score allocation minimum, whatever, was like 7 points or something. So
you needed Kmet to like score a touchdown there at the end or something.
I don't know what his final point was. But I was like, he can get 8.7 or something, he can get me a couple points. Keenan Allen did good though. Keenan Allen. I had a bunch of people in the Sunday night and Monday games, and I just couldn't pull it out.
I forgot, like, it is you can really just decide, like, it is completely up to you whether to tap in for that sweat. And I did it to myself on Monday too, where you start going through your teams in the second quarter of that last game. And I got locked into one where I literally needed one more Brock Bowers catch to advance a team. And he didn't have like a catch the entire fourth quarter, every stall drive. And it's just like, why did I should have just never looked. Yes, I would have looked after the fact and I would have shrugged and been upset. But why did I twist myself in knots for 30 minutes staring at something that never happened?
He didn't get oh man, that's a kick. How did you get him through?
Just one.
Just one. Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, well, I got some in some of this other side contests, but only one in BBM.
Oh man. This is has anyone in the circle gotten a good run here?
I've seen some people on Twitter. There's a few people in the Deposit Kingdom, who have like 6 or 7. Seen some, but isn't that what's wild? It's like you get 6 teams, you get 7 teams. I mean, to this, and you're still a dog to advance one. You get 8 and you're a 50 in, assuming you're like perfectly average, you got a 50% chance, flip a coin to get one to the finals. I mean, being able to flip a coin would be a pretty fun sweat to have, but man, it's still so tough.
Yeah. Right. When you put it that way to the guy who thought it was a good deal at the beginning, right? He's like, all I got to do is, win my pod and then win the first week. Yeah. I can win this thing. It's actually so hard.
It's so, and it goes back, I've talked about this and it from like DFS sweats too, right? Like you always having to hold or being in a position of like, oh man, I'm in first place right now. And then having to sweat, anti-sweat versus like a random team just charges late. And you're like, holy shit, that was awesome. Like that's how it kind of feels too. Like if you had 7 or 8 teams heading into this week, like obviously week 15 was awesome for you. You have all these high expectations. Like if you don't advance a team to the finals after that, you're going to feel like such dog shit. Where I'd kind of rather be, from a sweat perspective, it's like, I have one team in there. And then like that one just like, I have 0 expectations for my one team to make it. It's like, I'd rather be there than have my heart fucking ripped out after having the greatest week 15 ever.
Just assume it's going to lose. If it makes it, it makes it. It's a free roll, basically, kind of like at this point.
Emotional free roll. Yep.
Can you highlight that finding fantasy value comment up above? I'm not going to lie. I thought I advanced for a second when I looked at the team again. I'm like, oh, sweet. Top 2. That's good. I'm in. I'm like, wait a second. Is this what I did last time?
Top 2. Win it.
But I don't. Speaking of regulation, this is more regulation. We need Underdog to change that damn the little icons where it highlights 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Why are we highlighting those? And especially when I made the same amount of money as the guy who took 3rd, Patrick Barnes' YouTube, by the way.
I know. I'm with you. Seeing the 3rd place medallion, I'm like, this is the most participation trophy ass logo I've ever seen. This does nothing for me.
We need to see fucking Congress to step in. I'm calling Dick Durbin. He's going to get on it.
Oh man.
Yeah, that is annoying though. That it's like, why are you highlighting, especially the 3rd place guy? I wonder how many. This is probably half of the reason the noobs on Twitter complain so much is they're like, oh, 2nd, 3rd. I got a symbol and a trophy. You didn't get in.
It really is just like the time spent. It makes you think it's so much more important or likely to happen because you draft like the team I got through. We drafted on ship chasing on May 2nd. It's like I always like doing that thought experiment. I could have just drafted one BBM team and just stopped, and I'd be in the exact same place I am right now.
And if you get knocked out next week, what do you get back? Like 150 or something?
I think it might even be less than that, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will be super stoked for the people who, when you get a seat to the finals this year for BBM, and the top 20 teams win 6 figures. Like that's really cool. Like you're going to wake up on Sunday with like a very fun sweat.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Great. Yeah. If you make it, then that would be fantastic. Do you think like the idea behind fantasy football's playoff schedules like this is, at least this is what I think from doing fantasy football since I was a kid, was like, you want it to be as skillful as possible. Like you want as many shots on, like shots on if my team had a few more weeks, I would have done good. But when it's such a lottery ticket and you're only getting $100 back after the 2nd week of the playoffs, do you think they even need all that? Would it be better if it was just like last week was the Super Bowl Everyone who got in was a big GPP.
I mean, I would prefer it that way, but I think
like, what's the point really of like these thinning out the herd? Do people really think, oh, my team's so skillful, I skillfully drafted it, so it's gonna, make it through these stages of the way?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, are you saying that for payouts with the stages, or just saying the pod dynamics?
Yeah, like if there's barely
dynamics.
any payouts.
Oh yeah.
What's the point of even having all these stages of the playoffs? Why not just do one big GPP?
Oh, it's because of the sweat. It's the sweat, because when you segment the sweat to just having to win a pod of 12 or a pod of 16, it again makes it feel way more achievable. Whereas if it was just a cut line thing or a big sprint and your team has a bad week, like, you're done. You're done checking in. You didn't have the nuts players. You didn't have Josh Allen. Guess what? You're not winning this contest because he's got a 20-point lead on you.
I didn't even think about that. If they check in on their lineup, maybe they'll enter a few more.
It keeps you hyper engaged. Because it's like,
that makes sense.
Imagine my Brock Bowers thought experiment, right? If Brock Bowers gets one more catch, my team is dancing. If that's in the sprint, one more Brock Bowers catch, congratulations. He scored 6 points and is getting lapped by all the other tight ends who scored 10 more points than him.
Oh, yeah.
That week. And now that team's dead to do anything.
That's true. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I take it back.
But the point I thought you were making was like, just don't have any payouts along the way. Just like put all the money in week 17. Cause it's like, do I care about the $30 that I got back? It's like, nah, let's just pile on. So there's more millionaires who come out of this contest.
Yeah. Or the opposite, pay a little more. Like if you get $1,000, if you make it to the second round, you get $1,000 back. Like, I feel like that would be better than the $1 million the first regular season thing they did a couple years ago.
Yeah. I think there's a happy medium in between. Like, I did feel bad. So it was, I don't know if you saw it. It was a guy from the Deposit Kingdom community, YouTube member, longtime member of the Discord, Mathology, had the best team in the regular season. And it was like, in previous years, that literally could have been $1 million. And this year it was zero, and the team already got bounced. Didn't even make it.
Oh my God.
Isn't that crazy?
$35. If that. Ugh.
I will say though, one, he's an incredible sport, has a great attitude about it. 2, I think he's got like 6 or 7 teams still going. He's had a really good year. And 3, he won a dog bowl seat and then finished 6th at the dog bowl. So like, he's having a good year. Not saying that softens the blow, but maybe just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? So it doesn't matter, but that does suck that you're just 1 year off from a free millie.
Yes. But yeah, I think there's a happy medium there, sliding over a little bit of money. But I do really like this top 20 people in BBM make 6 figures. Like, that is sick money for 20 people, which is pretty awesome.
Right. It just feels like it's fine. I'm nitpicking here. I think it's pretty solid structure, but it just feels like it's like unequal, like the weighting and the payout. Like it feels like it's so important that you advance in these rounds, but like you're only getting like $35 then $100. It's like not that big of a deal.
And this is why it goes back to what we do to have the week 17 is all that matters, and you get all this pushback, and then you still got to get there and all of this stuff. And it's like, when you really tell me, when you go check your transaction log, the money you got back, and tell me if anything you would rather have than just having a team there that's optimized to win that week when you get there, to finish top 20 when you get there. It's like, good luck. Like, if that's what you're trying to do, is just to optimize to advance. That's really not going to help you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, definitely the structure is optimizing for week 17 with this payout structure. None of those ones mattered.
Dude, and I'm telling you, like, I tabbed through a few of my pods. I mean, there's just some wild shit in there, man. I found a 4 QB, 4 tight end team. And there was like a legit capital spent at both the quarterback and tight end. It wasn't like 4 punt QB, 4 punt, like just wild shit in these rooms. And I'm like, holy cow, this is the game of best ball is a beautiful thing, because you can do some donkey ass shit and get a team.
That's an auto draft. That's an auto draft.
I mean, you see wild shit, man. You see wild shit in these pods. And then it's like, fuck, all right, gotta max it next year again.
I hope they'll be more lenient on, although with all this regulation talk doesn't really incentivize them to be more lenient, but more lenient on allowing some of these donkey lineups to go through and not canceling the drafts.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta let the donkeys donkey.
We'll end on this note. A 4 QB4 team got through. The oldest man to ever stream 150 didn't get a single lineup to the semis.
It's a young man's game.
I do feel bad for you, Neil. Also, because at this time last year, I ran really hot. I think I had 6 teams in the semis, and then I was 1 CMC carry away from getting a team to the finals. And it was fun because you had all the teams you drafted on stream. You create a little playlist. These are the teams, the streams that made it to the semifinals. Poor Neil's over here just fucking twiddling his thumbs.
Are you going to do it again, Neil?
There's no, Neil is an old, like, I had a good time doing it. And even I was like, there's no fucking way I'm doing this again. I would be shocked if Neil wants to do this again.
I mean, well, no one's ever going to beat his record.
Except one of these old Steves hanging around who are threatening to do it.
No one's going to beat that record. Neil's so old.
All right. I got to run. I'm going to record the Deposit Kingdom video. We got the Shipcast tonight, Chargers and Broncos. We're having Mark Sessler on as our guest. And then on my regular shows tomorrow, Deposit Kingdom video, Block Party with JM, and Off and On the Clock with the Badge Bros. Brian, what do you guys got going on over in the In-Game Syndicate?
I did a dupe video talking about dupes yesterday. So that's up on our site. We should have a
what sport? Like in it,
any sport, just general dupe theory ideas, how to handle it, stuff like that.
Nice.
Should have an announcement in January, Pete.
I got tipped off on this. That's very exciting.
And then I did Davis's show yesterday, and I think that's all she wrote.
All right, there you guys have it. It sounds like no show for us next week.
No show next week.
No show next week, and then we will reconvene after that, and then it will almost be
Merry Christmas, Pete. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to you. Are you going to be up at the cabin or back in the burbs?
Yes. Yeah, I'll be all over with family. So
okay.
Chicago, suburbs, cabin.
Memphis Piss Boy wants to know about your Madden rank before we go.
I'm doing the Madden Ultimate team right now. So there's all this stuff. I'll get the rank up eventually.
All right. Okay. All right. Stay tuned for that. Everyone from the Lulz family, have a wonderful Christmas. Otherwise, both of us will see you around the interwebs. Peace.